Welcome to the Informed and Oblivious podcast, episode 3. I'm Kung Fu Phil, and this is Mushu Raymond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can you guess what we're going to talk about today?
Kung Fu Panda?
No. Kind of close. We're going to talk about Chyna. Yeah, or the 100-Acre Woods. If you know, you know.
I don't know.
But before we get started, if you guys like what we do, smash that like button, give us a follow, drop a comment, and you can find us on Rumble, Spotify, and YouTube.
Coincidentally, I've always hated the YouTube. Hit that like button. I've hated that every time I see it in every video. Now we're fucking doing it. And we have to do it. It's kind of the thing.
Well, all right. I'll go on a little side tangent here. I wanted to talk about Chyna, but I'll explain the methodology for it. Okay, so the way that it works, especially in a long form podcast, as you've seen from like the little bit of like people we've had viewing so far, most people only listen to about like 10 minutes into like long form content. If you're lucky, you retain like higher viewership than that, and they might like listen to the end of your stuff. But it's just like, it's almost like a Pavlov dog thing of like, just remind people because they won't think to do it unless you remind them.
I get it. Like, it's just like, it's always irritating me a little bit every time I see it. Like, it just seems so, I hate to use the word cringy, but like.
Well, you know what it's the equivalent of? It's like the equivalent of the caution hot in coffee. It's just like, if you're not thinking about it, you don't think about it. Like if somebody, like, if they tell you to think about it, you'll think about it.
Don't even think about it. Think about it.
But I mean,
quote from Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah. But anyway, screw the YouTube algorithm.
Chyna.
Chyna. We're going to talk about Chyna. Yeah, and before we talk about Chyna, I want to preface this with, again, I'm an idiot. So take everything I talk about today with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Look into it. I could be wrong on certain things. If I am wrong, please feel free to drop us a comment. I always want to learn more things and correct things if they're incorrect.
If he's wrong enough, we'll post a correction. That'll be fun.
Maybe we could talk about it in a future video. But like, part of the reason I want to talk about this stuff is still the trade war thing going on again. But it's really hard because there's so much propaganda like around the thing from both sides. But before getting into Chyna, do you know anything about the Chyna situation? And like,
I know that it exists.
Okay.
And that I saw something the other day about they're probably, I think you had said it in episode 1. You're like, yeah, they're probably just gonna hold off on shipping shit until it gets figured out. And I just saw some like, yeah, they're holding off on shipping shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, the trade war is a small like component of it, but like I just wanted to talk about it because I've been watching a lot of the stuff online lately with this whole trade war. The propaganda is getting out of control. So whether Americans realize it or not, we are the most propagandized country in the world. And that's not necessarily from our own government. In terms of our own government propagandizing us, we're probably on par with most like other countries with that. But because we're the richest country in the world, every other country in the world is trying to influence us in one way or another. And whether you realize it or not, that's what's going on. So, with the whole trade war thing and China really suffering over there right now, the propaganda is getting like next level. And I just wanted to talk about that whole situation because Russia's a non-issue. I hate when people bring up the Russia boogie monster. Russia is nothing. Russia used to be a thing during the Cold War, but ever since we had like the nuclear proliferation and the whole Cold War ended and the Soviet Union bloc broke apart, Russia is nothing. Basically, like, imagine if the United States dissolved and the only thing left was California. Like, yeah, you got some power. Like, California is, like, no joke. But if you don't have that whole union of states together, like, we're nothing. And that's basically what happened to Russia when the Soviet Union fell apart. They went from being this massive superpower to, like, nothing. And, I think as the Ukraine thing has shown, we don't have to worry about Russia in any way, shape, or form. They're just another like minor European state over there.
The Ukrainians might disagree, but
Well, no, no, no. Like for their neighboring states, sure, but
Yeah,
in terms of like near peer to us, they are so
as a
far
global
behind.
issue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because like let's set this one straight too from the very beginning because I want to talk about like the way that China's trying to do this thing. There is only one global superpower right now, the United States. That's it. There is no other global superpower. China and Russia can talk all they want about how they are a global superpower. It's bullshit. Our military dwarfs them by comparison, and we are the only country in the world right now that could fight a war on multiple fronts. China, Russia, none of them can mobilize it. Russia can't even get their fucking navy outside of their own seas. So like that one's not happening. And China kind of has the same issue. Like our naval like air force carriers are more than the top 3 like nations behind us combined. We have 11. And people are like, "Oh, that's not a lot." 11 Air Force carriers is crazy when you figure that it's about a fleet of 50 ships that we send out with those Air Force carriers. And not every country, but most countries in the world, if we sent an Air Force carrier ship fleet out, we could basically conquer the country in a day. Like that's the amount of firepower we're talking with there. So like when people are like, "Oh no, what if we get to war with China?" We will never get to war with China because the moment we go to war with China, it's over. China loses. They're not going to win. The only thing that would draw out a war with China is if we go with the tactic that we have in the past of like all these other drawn out wars of we're trying to minimize the casualties in the country because whether people believe it or not, America is one of the most magnanimous countries that has been the empire in the world that the world has ever seen. No other like predominant country has sat there and gone like, you know what? We're the ones on top right now. Maybe we shouldn't mess with the little guy because we were the little guy to start out, and that's kind of like ingrained in our culture and our history. And it's just like it's so much ingrained in us. Don't fuck with other people. But that has never been the case in the past with like other nations and empires. Like think about any empire in the past. What empire or like controlling state has not gone like, you know what? I'm gonna go and fuck up everybody else and see how much territory I can conquer, and then make them my slaves, take their riches, and like move on. We don't do that shit. And the and even like when you go back to World War II when we bombed Japan, right?
Mm.
People are like, "Oh, it was horrible. We shouldn't have done it." But when they did the math on like, and there's an argument either way whether you believe it or not. But the Japanese at that time were, their emperor was a god king basically, and they worshipped him. So they were going to fight to the last man no matter what. And when we decided that the amount of casualties that it would produce from that bombing them would avoid that whole situation. And the
Worked.
yes, but people don't even realize too. Like it wasn't just nukes. We tried firebombing them first. Like we firebombed them because all their houses were made of wood back then. That didn't do it. Then we dropped one nuke. That didn't do it. We dropped a second nuke, and finally the Japanese people had enough, and they're like, all right, we're gonna stop now. But if we hadn't, we probably would have dragged that war out for another 3 years at least in that theater. So even though like it was fucked up to see, like at the time, on balance, it was the better thing to do to save the most lives. So if we're not going with that aspect, if China went to war, tried to fuck with us, invaded Taiwan, and we fought defensively against them, China within a year would be dominated by us. Like if we didn't do the whole like we're trying to be nice, like spare them kind of thing. And right now too, because of the factories getting shut down and this whole like trade war thing, there's riots going on in like, well, not really riots, but civil unrest going on in China right now, which is almost signaling that there's going to be a regime change soon in the country. Because usually when that happens, the person in charge of the Chinese Communist Party changes hands. And the fact that like she has already been over the years like fighting off like assassination attempts, coups, like all these things, like shutting down the livelihood of the Chinese people over there is really royally screwing him right now. So, if we went in, if they went to war and then we went in, they might run into a situation where like half the Chinese people are just like, yeah, fuck it, we're tired of this whole thing. We want what America has. Like, please, like, fix this whole thing. Funny if China became the 51st state.
Big fucking state.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Then we'd be like half the world's economy. We wouldn't be a quarter of the global GDP. We'd be 50% of the global GDP. But yeah, I just laugh when I have so many people like you see it all over the place, and it's Chinese propaganda to like the upteenth degree, where they're like, yeah, like don't you don't want war with China? War with China would be bad. War with China would be bad. No, the fuck it wouldn't. Their standing army is barely bigger than ours, and like most things over there in China, it's corrupted by the Chinese Communist Party and the quotas that they have set. Because over there in China, you don't make your goals, you don't do the things that they want you to do, you get disappeared, or you get killed, whatever. You're gone. They have total state control over there. So they just all fake the fucking numbers, and they fake the readiness, and they fake the recruitment. Like China's latest thing that they came out with, they had an aircraft carrier that was all fucking drones. And it's like, okay, fucking who cares? We can launch those drones from fucking anywhere. We don't need an aircraft carrier that's completely dedicated to drones. And their drones are far less sophisticated than our like shit. And talk about like giving us an easy target. You're telling us that an aircraft carrier is mostly not people. No restraint needed. You just blow the fucking you blow a hole inside that fucking thing, and it's done. So like yeah, when everybody's like, oh my god, what would World War III look like? It would look like the war in Iraq. It would be over in like 7 days.
All right then.
Yeah. But that's not the war that they've been fighting, and the war that they've been trying to fight, and that is the real threat to us that most people don't realize. One, they've been trying to be a dominant economic power throughout the world with their whole like Belt and Road initiative, which was really stymied by COVID. So, as you saw, like in the beginning of COVID, you know how a couple countries were like really hit hard in the beginning, like, and you're like, what the fuck's going on here? Why are these places getting hit so hard by this fucking disease? Like Italy was like one of them. So China's been doing like its whole nation building thing to counter our nation building thing called the Belt and Road Initiative. So they've been trying to lend out their currency and workforce to other countries to kind of do what we do. The problem is they don't have the economics to do that. But it looks good on paper, except they build very shitty shit. So it's not just like the shit coming out of their cheap like plants. Their construction stuff's pretty shit too. And I know we don't have room to talk. We've been like kind of lax on that lately, but like our worst construction is like their best construction.
Hmm.
So they've been investing in all these countries, mainly in Africa, which is funny. So funny that everybody trying to do a colonial thing immediately goes for Africa. Like, can we leave those guys alone? Like seriously, like let them build their own thing, or at least like give them fucking actual help, not the fucking shit. But either way, they were testing that out there. So like during COVID, all these areas got hit hard because there was a lot of Chinese influence, and this fucking exposed that fact. One, but two, they realized really quickly that like they weren't going to get help from China when shit hits the fan. So they pulled out. They pulled out from a lot of this like economic development with China after COVID. So that already like hurt their global dominance thing. But the second way that they've been trying to dominate the world is like information like warfare, and just making China like seem like it's this amazing country that it really isn't. Um and the ways of that is most people don't even realize like how great the Chinese like firewall is. So like everybody's like, oh, they censored the internet over here or in this country or that country. Like the Chinese, you want to mute your phone over there? The Chinese state government controls pretty much all of the information that goes in and out of China. And the important part is the fact that they control the information that goes out of China. Because some of the stuff that I learned, especially like after COVID and whatnot, is how much of their content coming out is just fake. Shock and awe content for views and clicks and donations, and basically trying to scam people out of money in other countries. So during the early days of COVID, I wasn't really shocked as to what was going on because I watched a channel, and shout out to them, called China Uncensored, and they are very heavily like watching the Chinese like Communist Party and what's going on there in China, and have people working for their team that speak fluent Chinese so they can understand like what's going on in the videos and not like the curated like subtitles that come out. So watching them, like I knew about like Corona going on over there before it like really like spread to the rest of the world because I saw the videos of fucking people falling over in the streets like this mysterious like illness over there, which now comes to find out that a lot of that might have been overblown by the Chinese Communist Party. Like they might have purposely faked the severity of it in order to cause global panic.
Oh,
So yeah, yeah. So the thing that I didn't realize with a lot of those videos that you see now coming out of China, like remember there was all those floods going on in China around that time period.
no.
Like, well, so
Remember who you're talking to. No, I don't know shit.
well, but basically, so like around the same time that COVID came out and all that shit happened, China was getting like fucked by like a lot of things. They were getting all these heavy rainstorms coming through, and it looked like there was mass flooding going on in the country. There was even concern about the Three Gorges Dam collapsing and potentially failing because of all the water. Well, a lot of it was faked. So you could find videos of it online, and it's fucking crazy and hilarious. So what they do is they go to sections of the city that are flooded. So like let's say it's like flooded to maybe like knee high water in a part of the city. You'll see about 100 to 200 people all in that like knee high water kneeling down to make it look like it's waist high or chest high, and they're all filming like, hey, like the floods here are so bad, we really need help, we really need like your support and all of this stuff to get views and likes and click. And like people step back and film like the fact that like
Hmm.
all of them are filming this, and they do it in an effort to scam other countries out of their money. So, because remember, China only allows things out of China that it wants, and it would never let like negative stuff come out. And if negative stuff does come out, it gets scrubbed from the Chinese internet pretty quickly, and the people posting it disappear equally as quickly. So a lot of that stuff was faked in an effort to, get money and scam money into the country because they don't care because if the Chinese citizens are getting money from other countries, that money's leaving that country and is getting circulated around in their economy. So it's good for them. Um, so there's a lot of indication that during COVID, certain areas may have been hit really bad, but a lot of the videos of people like passing out in the streets and falling over, like almost like appearing like dead, like early on, might have been either faked video footage or video footage from like other like crisis events that then
Hmm.
they've just like been like, look, people are like dropping in the streets like this, including the whole welding them into buildings thing. Like a lot of that might have
What now?
yeah. Oh, you didn't know about that? Yeah, so in the early days of COVID, especially in the Wuhan area, if somebody in your building tested for COVID, positive for COVID, they had videos of like the Chinese Communist Party going around and like welding the apartment door, like the apartment building door shut so that the people couldn't leave. But again, if they did that because they weren't giving them food, they weren't doing anything like that, a lot more people would have died from that.
Yeah.
So, looking back on it and knowing what I know now, I think a lot of that stuff was faked in order to panic the world globally and force some kind of I don't know, economic meltdown or what they were trying to do with it. But it seems a lot of it was staged.
Hmm.
So, take that with a grain of salt. But I mean, everything that happens in China is curated by the Chinese Communist Party. So even during that time, when the early days went in, and we wanted to send people in from like the World Health Organization, which is also massively funded by China, the scientists that are sent over were given like the PR tour.
Wait, the who?
Or are you just messing with me?
Get it? Get it?
Yeah, well, we dropped out of the WHO, and for good reason, because like we don't need them. We have the CDC. We're good. We have our own like industry of health that is like leaps and bounds above like a lot of that suggestions and what they're doing. But the World Health Organization, just like a lot of these other organizations that sound good, are heavily influenced by the money that's poured into them. And one of the people that poured a lot of that money in was China, which is why, like, in the early days of COVID, they were praising the actions that China was doing, saying they're doing everything that they can. And, you had Nancy Pelosi on TV, like, don't stop going to Chinatown and whatnot. And, don't blame the Chinese for this shit, because you can follow the paper trail of money, and, like, the money's coming from them. Um, but yeah, so like they curated the experiences that our scientists like were allowed to go in and go see. They weren't allowed to go to the actual like hot zone in Wuhan. So they got like the PR tour, and they're like, "Oh, everything seems above board." Um but yeah, went on a little tangent with the whole COVID thing, but basically they are blasting nothing but propaganda out to the rest of the world to make them seem better than they are. And many people don't realize too, until we brought them into the global trade agreement, because before they were brought into the global trade network, China was doing barely better than North Korea at the time,
Hmm.
because surprise surprise, communism doesn't work. They always talk about the numbers of people that like Hitler killed and fascism killed and whatnot. They never talk about the famine that communism causes. And millions of people starved to death in China. Millions. And they were starting to get their infrastructure going a little bit after that. They kind of like, balanced and recovered again, much like game civilization. You expand too far, population collapses. You got to reassess and rebuild and recover from that aspect. But yeah, they weren't doing much better than North Korea was at that time, until we brought them into the global trade agreement to try to, with the effort of, if we bring them up like economically, that they will become less communistic and more capitalistic. Which, in some degrees, is kind of true. Like the youth now in China are a lot more heavily influenced on like what their quality of life could be, but at the same time, everything is still controlled by the state. So like they want to have a better living, and they're kind of like pissed off about that. But she is already sending youth into the countryside to work the fields to make food again, because they don't have enough fucking farmers. Something that he was a part of when Mao was in charge of, like, they sent people to the fields to work them because nobody was making the fucking food and they needed the fucking food. So like these guys want a better life. They want like what America has, but they don't have any of that infrastructure and economy behind it. So the whole thing with China is they want to become the dominant world superpower. And even with like, so the largest economies in the world, I think it goes us, China, then Germany. Germany is like the one behind China, and I don't know if China's GDP is as good as they say it is, because China is the one that puts out those numbers every year, and they don't let people into audit and do the things that they said they would do, like as part of this global trade agreement. So before the whole global trade thing and us shipping manufacturing over there, a lot of people didn't do business with China because they do the same thing that they do now. You would go and manufacture something over there in China, and then within a year or two, there was a knockoff of your
Mm-hmm.
trade marketed brand at another factory undercutting your own product. And part of the coming into the global trade agreement was they were supposed to stop all that. They were supposed to stop the IP theft, and we were supposed to be able to litigate in their court systems and say like, hey, this company here stole my intellectual property. You need to punish them. And China said, yeah, 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 we'll do that. And then when push comes to shove, they don't do any of it. They still steal property all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they sit there and they don't let you litigate. So there's nothing you could do about it. But people still ship the stuff over there because it's so cheap to manufacture.
Yeah, the knockoffs are out before the actual products are out usually.
Yeah, yeah.
Manufacturing's done over there, so they can rush through it quicker.
Yeah, well, their latest propaganda thing is like really gonna hurt them, because their whole thing of like basically saying all these high end brands are made here when they're really not, is now companies are gonna look at that and go like, well, one, I don't know if I want to manufacture in China anymore right now because of the tariffs, but two, if I manufacture over there, not only are they gonna steal my product, they're gonna sell it from the factory that I make it at an undercutted price. and then try to pass it off as my stuff, whether it's made there or not. So the whole thing is like a desperate attempt for them to get the valve turned back on, because the problem is it's a massive pissing contest right now, but one of us has a fire hose and the other has a garden hose. And people could talk about Trump being boisterous all he wants, but we don't need China. We get a lot of cheap Chinese shit from over there. But before China came into play, our largest trade partner, and it makes sense, our largest trade partner was the EU. And still to this day, a lot of the goods we get come from the EU and not from really China. All our cheap shit comes from China. But if we lost China as a supplier, it would mean nothing to us. But if China lost us as a consumer, they would suffer tremendously. Like, again, the people here, when the Chinese goods get cut off, yeah, there will be people that will be affected for sure. Some people won't do as well off of it. But we're talking, they're putting rhetoric out in China right now to brace them for basically Mao era shit of people will die, and we don't care if you die. They're like, we're gonna hold firm, and if it means millions of you die, so that like we don't budge an inch, that's what's gonna happen.
Huh.
Oh yeah, oh it's really bad, and like, so a lot of the factories over there in China have already started either laying people off, telling people they're gonna be laid off, or doing things of like, yeah, you guys are going on a 2-week vacation now. And yeah, when that 2-week vacation's over, it's probably going to be a permanent vacation because they're not going to restart the factories back up because people aren't putting orders through. Because I was watching like an NBC thing the other night when I was out there with my parents, and they're talking about this one medical company there is like trying to figure out what to do because they can't get in shipments from China because they'll lose too much money if they take the shipments from them now. So they're pausing the orders and trying to figure out like other supply chain ways around it. And in the case of that one place, they wanted to open up a factory in the United States, but they got screwed by too much regulation, which is whole like another issue. But like for things like medical stuff, I'm hoping that it will be brought back here because we shouldn't be making our medical shit over there in China to begin with. Although, unfortunately, what it looks like we're going to do is now we're just going to start outsourcing to India.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Apple.
Yeah, which isn't ideal, but the difference is like India is a much more moldable country, and if we bring up the quality of life in India, which there's so much of that country that still doesn't have indoor plumbing, which is fucking wild. But if we bring up the quality of life in India, they're not like they still have that whole like caste system to a degree there, but if their quality of life comes up, that system I think would dramatically change and be more like capitalistic, like how we are, more like a democratic, like capitalistic system. They're not going to go into full like communism. It's not going to be a thing over there. So they're not going to care. They're not going to undercut us. They might become a peer, but they become a peer in a very friendly way, I think. Still not ideal to have like your critical things made over there in another country, but that's the thing. The whole world is so like intertwined right now. But yeah, the factories over there are shutting down like every other day, and it's gonna be bad. People talk about like, oh yeah, the price shock here. I don't think most people here are prepared for the loss of life that if this continues, China is about to face, and
I didn't even consider it.
it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be absolutely terrible. So again, a lot of things over there are already faked. The numbers are all fake because everybody over there that doesn't make the standard, they get knocked out of their position, they get jailed, they get unalived. Like you it's terrible. People talk about like, oh, they're taking people off the streets here. It's like, no, 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 no. It is not. It is not the same. People in China, if you post something negative about China on the internet, not only is it removed from the internet like almost immediately, but then they'll come and remove you as well.
Hmm.
like and they don't care. There's so many people over there. They're like, oh, what happened to so and so? Oh yeah, I spoke up. They got removed, and they're brainwashed in their schools the same way that we are here. The only thing is like here we're allowed to talk about that brainwashing, and you can choose to listen to it or not. You know, you could question things, whatever. But over there is not. It is we have one goal in mind, and you have to get behind the goal. And if you're allowed to get rich over there, you're only allowed to get rich because the you've moved up in the party, and the party allows you to get
The
rich.
party is also getting rich because of what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, which you know, before this whole trade war thing, there was a huge issue over there too with investments in China and a lot of retirement plans suffering from it because the companies over there were lying about their financial data. So, you know, when you're publicly traded over here, you have to do these financial disclosures. The SEC's like heavily involved. You get audited. There's no auditing over there. They just say, yeah, these are the numbers, and it could all be fake, and more than likely it is fake because again they're all state-run companies. The state controls it, so why would you tell the rest of the world and signal to them that you're doing bad, which would remove investment from the country? You wouldn't do it. That's why, like, when their banks started to collapse over there and people wanted to make a run on them, like almost like we did in the Great Depression, they literally put the fucking army in front of the banks and said, get the fuck away. They're like, you're not, yeah, you're not banking today. We don't care. You're not pulling your money out. Your money's staying in there. Because like they wanted to pull their money out because the shit was collapsing so hard that it was losing so much value that you were better off to like hold the paper money yourself. You know what I mean? But but yeah, it's getting bad over there. It's gonna get a whole hell of a lot worse. And the propaganda is just crazy. You got the fake shit being like sold, like why buy this high end brand when you could just get it from us direct? All fucking fake and lies. You have those propaganda videos coming out of like the AI generated fat Americans working in the factory things. You know, like they were like, oh yeah, this is what it's fucking like to work in a factory, and I'm like, well, it's funny, but most people, when that came out, they didn't realize it was China that did it. They thought somebody here in the U.S.
Yeah,
did it.
I would have assumed it was someone here. Yeah.
No, no, it was China. It was all straight Chinese fucking propaganda about that. Um, and then you know, more propaganda of like, oh, we're fine, just buy, you know, invest in us instead of like dealing with the fucking the Americans. But they don't have the money to support that. They don't consume. They're not a consumer economy. They're a manufacturing economy. And when they're losing one of the biggest consumers of their manufactured goods, there's nothing there to support it because they can't even sell that internally. Like if the shoe was on the other foot and we had the manufacturing here in the US and one of our global partners decided we don't want to buy from you anymore, we consume so much goods in here, you could sell the product here in the US and be fine. You might take like a 10% hit to your bottom line, but you wouldn't collapse. These guys are losing so much. You're talking 50, 60, 70, 80% of their bottom line in some of these factories. Because think about like all the shit that goes on in Amazon. Like Amazon is in other countries around the world, but not nearly to the degree that it is here in the US. And you know, if people are listening from other countries, I don't think they realize that like you can go like, especially like where we live on the East Coast, you could go 20 miles and hit like 3 different Amazon warehouses.
Yep.
It's fucking unheard of.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to guess what the percentage is, but there's a huge percentage of stuff that you can order on Amazon and get within a few hours delivered to your house. It is insane.
Yeah, and that consumerism doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Mostly because of like high taxes in some of these like socialist democratic like countries. You know, a lot of the Europe, because their taxes are so high with all these social services that they do or don't get, you know, like going to the DMV basically and trying to get your health care and shit like that. So they pay extraordinarily high taxes, but because of that they don't have the spare money to go around to consume. So they'll buy stuff. It's not like they don't have stuff, but they're not buying the extravagant stuff that we do here. Or going on like Amazon and dropping $100, $200 in a day just because fuck it, I need some things. Like that is unheard globally. So China can't support that thing. And I think if by the middle of this year that they don't make a deal with the US in some form or fashion, in the next 2 years we see a complete economic collapse of their country, almost resetting them back to like the Mao days of like they're gonna have to start again and refigure it out, or we're gonna see a regime change, and they're gonna kick out Xi. Somebody else is gonna come in, and they're gonna go, yeah, we'll make a deal with the U.S. What the fuck do you want to do? And I really hope that we really put some guardrails on that shit and really, really, really make it so that they can't screw us and the rest of the world over economically again. Because the thing is, with a dictator controlled country like that, they don't have to think in 4-year election cycles like we do. They think in 300-year cycles, like that. Or well, at least that's what they proclaim to do. But like basically, the party's in control the whole time, so they don't give a fuck what people want. This is how we're gonna do it. This is our plan for the world, and this is what we're gonna do. And if China runs the world and becomes the dominant presence in the world, like you got to think like how it would be like if Germany had won World War II, and like how that would be, because they don't allow freedom of the press over there. They don't allow any kind of dissidence. They don't allow any kind of decadence, and they're going to enforce that kind of hegemony on the rest of the world. And then maybe they'll prop up their own people and the decadence will get to them, but I highly doubt it.
Hegemony, fancy word.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be an authoritarian regime for the world globally for sure. Again, people can hate the U.S. and what we do, but they came out with the. I was watching one of these channels today. They came out with the report from 2024 of like people that like jailed like writers, reporters, and stuff around the world. The number one country for it, I think, just behind North Korea, was China. China jails their journalists that speak out against them. But the thing that was like higher than the journalists, they jailed the commenters online.
Ooh.
So if you posted a negative comment online, they jailed you. That was it. And like jail in China is like you're not coming out alive again, and you're probably gonna be harvested for your organs. Like what they're doing with the Uyghur Muslims over there in China, because China doesn't allow religion whatsoever. So part of the reason why Russia never really got full communist, and like why it's kind of like the better of the two, is because they tried to excise religion over in Russia as well, but the Orthodox Christians over there in Russia is such a like a huge like thing, and such a an ingrained part of their culture, that when they tried to get rid of the Orthodox churches, the people started to rebel, and they were like, all right, we'll let you have religion. So like it doesn't work in that the communist societies, because for communism to function, you can't have something greater than the self outside of you. So like it has to be that you are focused solely on the government. The government is the new religion and the new god and the new figurehead. So if you have another religion that like says like, oh, you should do these things to be a better person, it's contrary to the whole system. China doesn't have that. China, to the contrary, sits there and fucking excises all religion. There is no religion. They were persecuting Christians in the early days, beheading them and shit like that. And then when they excised that, then they went after when they got Tibet, they started killing the Tibetan monks and shit like that. Then there's just this spirituality thing, which is kind of like yoga over there. I think it's Feng Gong or some shit like that. I don't know how to say it, but basically it's kind of like yoga. They started killing those practitioners too, because it's too close to religion. Like it was just like, like meditating and fucking and doing like, spiritual things like that. They went and fucking they they went and murdered those people, and even today, like if you're found practicing that, they'll arrest you. And then they went after the Uyghur Muslims, which the Uyghurs are a minority population in China. I think they're more akin to like Mongolian, something like that. Like they look a little bit different than your like average Chinese person, but they also follow like Islam. So they've been having them in camps and using them for forced labor and shit for a very long time now. And they also use them when Chinese people need like organ transplants and whatnot, like higher up like party members, they'll go and harvest the organs from these people. Like you're not like, hey, do you want to? No, like this person needs a new heart. We're taking your heart. We don't fucking care.
Jesus.
Yeah, and people don't realize this, because at the same time that all this shit's going on, they're doing propaganda through like influencers, stuff like that, of like, look how modern China is. Like their whole fucking like flying taxi thing that they just did. Like they have these helicopter taxi things over there, which I don't know. I don't know how widespread that is, but they had some like streamer influencer like, look at my flying car thing that I'm in over here. One, probably a nightmare in those cities because of the stuff going on. But again, everything is heavily curated by the Chinese Communist Party. So if you're any person of influence, you 100% are going in there with a handler. They're not letting you roam around that
Mhm.
country freely. They would never do that. So they're going like, you got to think of it like Avatar: The Last Airbender with Ba Sing Se. Ba Sing Se to a heavy degree was modeled after China. Well, no, you know how like they went into Ba Sing Se and they had the handler Julie, and Julie was supposed to like show them everything, and like whenever they went to places they weren't supposed to, she would like shut the door, like you're not supposed to be over here. And then she messed up, disappeared, and it replaced her with Judy. And they're like, "What happened to Julie? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" You
I don't
know,
remember this.
you don't remember Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I remember Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't remember that.
Yeah, you don't remember when they got the Ba Sing Se?
At the bossing say.
Yeah, they had a handler as they immediately once they entered the city. And they had the whole like secret police there. Remember the Dai Li that were like
Hmm.
running the whole thing? Same kind of deal, except like there is no like fake emperor of China anymore. It's just like the Dai Li running the show, basically. So you have all these influencers going over there being like, look, China's the civilization of the future. Like they have all this crazy technology and stuff like that. And it's like, maybe on surface level, but a lot of it is again either heavily faked, heavily curated, or it's just shoddy to begin with. So you have a lot of those videos coming out now of like the poor construction on these like mega buildings over there, of like they go down into the parking garages, and the pillars that are holding up the building are made of like the wrong concrete and rusted rebar in there,
Ugh.
like holding it together, and it's like, okay, this isn't good. But again, how widespread it is, take with a grain of salt, because they had like videos of like this shit going on, and there's like 20, 50 people like crowded around it, and you think, "Oh, it's the people in the building concerned." No, it's every single one of those motherfuckers trying to film a video to send viral. So you might see 100 videos coming out, but it might all be the same thing because they're all filming it from like different angles,
Hmm.
and you're like, "Oh my god!" And they'll say it's like this building or that building or whatever. But either way, they have like huge infrastructure problems, and they've done things like they built that mega city that's like fucking empty as fuck. They built like I think like 36 lane highways into this mega city that they were trying to like force people into to fix some of their like housing problems and crowding problems in their other cities that they have. But it doesn't work because cities pop up from naturally like drawn things. If there's not work, if there's not some kind of attraction that draws people to live in these places, they don't live there. Can't force it. Like cities are a naturally like occurring human thing. If there's opportunity, if there's any kind of a thing like that that will allow like the growth, it'll happen. If not, the cities will die. Like much like what happened to Detroit after the auto industry collapsed. Everybody like left that city, and then you got to the point where you had wild packs of dogs roaming the street in like certain areas. You could buy houses for like $1 to try to bring things back. And to some degree, the like, yeah, don't lick me. Ow.
He's talking to my cat.
Yeah. Your cat that's more dog than cat.
Oh, just give him a little shove. He'll go away.
But Ed, yeah, well, but I'm trying to break him of the habit of licking me.
A little shove and he'll go away.
But but yeah, so like Detroit came back a little bit, but if you don't have these manufacturing things, like you get dead cities. Cities die, which is part of the reason that we want to bring some of the manufacturing back to the US anyway, because a lot of these like cities and towns that's suffering across the country are because the plant shut down and went overseas. Make this cheap shit. So some of it might come back, some of it won't. We have to do some things like around regulations too, to like make that more enticing. Because what that guy, the when I was watching the other day, was saying is true. If you want to make things in the US, there's so much fucking red tape for certain things that it stops you from getting in. And part of that red tape is put in place by these oligarchic fucking mega companies in our country that go, okay, well, I got to the top. Now I don't want anybody else to climb up the ladder after me, so I'm cutting out this section of the ladder. And basically making it so like if you're not up to a certain level already, you can never get past the red tape to
Hmm.
fucking make these things. But if you have enough money, you can just be like, okay, sure. We'll make that thing here. So you're seeing it with some of the stuff like Nvidia investing in those like $1 billion factories or whatever that they're gonna do in Arizona and whatnot. So like that shit's all like, Trump's going in and be like, yeah, we're gonna remove the roadblocks in the way that you can do this, but we're gonna have to do that for like a lot more industries. And I'm not talking regulation either, like around safety, because I know when people like hear like regulation, they're like, "Oh my God, it's not going to be done in a safe way." No, there's regulation where like to approve some of these zoning things and get the like the required permits done takes fucking years for no reason. They're not saying like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna build this in an unsafe way." They're just like, "Hey, can we build this factory here?" And they're like, "I don't know. You got to pay this committee and then this committee and then we got to do a study over here. And then once you've done that study, now we need to do another study to verify that study. And then maybe we'll have a vote on it to allow you to do it." It's fucking asinine. It should never be that fucking way. Watching a lot of those videos on like the founding of things that happened back in the day. I think I talked about this episode or two ago about Folgers out there in fucking, well, maybe I was talking about it at work. I forget. I talk about so much shit. Fucking I was watching a thing about like the coffee industry in the country and how it started. And Folgers started by the guy Folger at 14-year-old working in a spice place at the time. And so like basically like America's coffee back then was bad because you had to roast and ground it yourself. But he worked in a place in San Francisco where for other spices they had the equipment that was already doing that. So he roasted and ground the coffee and then pre-packaged it and sold it to the gold miners in San Francisco at the time, because his brothers were working the gold mine and he was working a steady job to kind of keep paying the bills for them while they like maybe got money and hit it
Yeah.
big. But through that was able to innovate and come up with this ground coffee shit. That stuff would never fucking happen today because we have so many fucking roadblocks in the way. You would come up with a new innovative product like that, and you wouldn't have the funds to get through the committees necessary to make those ideas grow. So we do need regulations and safeguards to protect people from like bad things, like dumping chemicals, doing things in a safe way. But the stuff that stops you from even getting off the ground is fucking insane, and we need to cut it back. And it's all there to line the pockets of these governments and politicians in these corrupt areas in the fucking country. And if anybody thinks that's not a case, I encourage anybody out there the next time you have it, almost every fucking town in the country has it. If there's a town council in your meeting or town council meeting in your town, go sit in on the next one of those and you'll fucking hate the government. You'll realize how fucking corrupt the whole process is, because it's just a bunch of fucking assholes in a room going like, well, my buddy wants to build this thing in the town. Let's let my buddy build the thing in the town. And because nobody goes to those fucking meetings, nobody realizes that's exactly how it works in every town. And then when you take it to the next level, it's the same thing that happens in the state and then up to the federal government. It's all very rich and powerful people shaking hands to make things happen and keep the little guy out. When for a very long time in our country, it was just innovators. Innovators came up with things. Half the innovations and things that happened in the past in our country couldn't happen today because of how strict our fucking regulations are. And I'm not talking about, again, with the big companies and the chemical dumping and shit like that. That wouldn't stop these guys. But even the guy Farnsworth that like came up with the idea for the fucking TV would have never happened today, because the guy was a fucking, just came up with the idea from looking at his farm, doing all this crazy like electronics, like experimenting thing, like never happens. The only thing that's kind of breakthrough like that still, and it's only because there's not much regulation around it because a lot of people don't understand it still, is like coding stuff in apps. That's why you see all these like apps go like crazy big and people sell like all these things for like, multi-million dollars. But like inventing like new ideas and concepts have kind of like died a little bit. That's why that Shark Tank show got popular because people come up with these products. And if they didn't have an investor like that,
No way to, yeah.
yeah. And there's no way to get those investments anymore because, again, with the whole financial crisis in 2008, we killed the little banks. So there's no small local bank of like, yeah, I know you, Jim. You got this crazy product idea. You know what? Fucking, I know that like, we're taking a risk here, but I know you. You're a solid guy. I trust what you have to say. Let's invest in you. That's gone. It's the big corporate banks now. And if you came to them like, hey, I made this widget, the big corporate bank would fucking laugh at you. They're not going to give you a loan. They're not going to give you a business loan. Good fucking luck. The only thing that gets business loans now is like service industry things. So like if you're like, hey, I want to open a restaurant in the town, they'll be like, okay, no problem. But if you're like, yeah, I created this new groundbreaking product that I want to get the patents for and start like selling and manufacturing, they'd be like, ha, get the fuck out of my office.
How much is your house worth?
Yeah, yeah.
Give you that much. That's not enough. Well,
Yeah, so again, the China thing is about to implode, and I don't want to see the Chinese people suffer, but unfortunately, something needs to correct this. These guys are doing underhanded tactics in the global market that is seriously hurting everyone around the world. Because again, they're cheating at the game. And it's like playing a game of Monopoly. If you got a guy like hiding money or not like playing the game right, why would you keep playing with that person? But instead, we're doing it because, again, the rich people are benefiting so much from this. So much. Because still, now to this day, everybody that's talking negative on these tariff things stand to lose millions because they can't make their shit over there anymore. Like it's never the local like mom and pop shop over here. None of these people are the ones like saying this is bad. It's all of these mega corps that are like, oh, our bottom line's gonna be hurt. Fuck them. Really don't care. But
we'll see what happens.
yeah.
We're just along for the ride.
But yeah, mostly again, I just wanted to talk about China because everybody's like, "Oh my God, they're so great," or "They're such
Chyna.
a threat," or like, "They're not a threat to us militaristically." They're just not. It's never gonna happen. In fact, did you see their fucking Wile E. Coyote scheme of how they're gonna invade Taiwan?
Nah.
Oh my God, it's fucking hilarious, dude. They're doing these practice drills of what they're gonna do, and basically what it is they're gonna load up like 3 like cargo looking ships. They're gonna just they've practiced this, and it's like if we saw this coming, like one, wouldn't be hard to stop, but two, like it's just a big fucking target. They're going to take like cruise liner slash cargo ships, shit that looks like civilian vehicles, load them with tanks and whatnot, and basically create like a landing bridge of like they're gonna have 3 ships in a row of like drop the fucking thing down and like offload these military vehicles onto Taiwan to invade it by land. One, though, we now know that this is a thing and we know it's coming. But two, it takes time to do that, and those things are a massive sitting duck target. They don't have like fucking like anti like air like defenses on those things because if they did, it would stand out like a sore thumb. So you have nothing to protect your fucking your military landing operation. Like we just go like, hey, what's those 3 like cruise liners in a row on the beach by Taiwan? Oh, that's the Chinese. Boop. It's fucking done. Like like it's a Wile E. Coyote plan of like, yeah, this is how we're gonna fucking invade Taiwan. Not gonna happen, man. Not gonna happen. But I I just oh, I'm not worried about him. I'm just like lost in thought. Like fucking I don't know what's gonna happen with this China shit, and I wish they would course correct. But the problem is we've seen time and time again communism doesn't work. I know people want this socialist utopia where everybody gets an equal share, but the problem is nobody puts in equal work. We see it all the time again. Is the people that suffer in the communistic system are the people at the opposite ends of the bell curve, the very bottom and the very top. and it drags everyone down because if you disincentivize the reason for people to work hard, you don't create a thing where everybody raises each other up. You create a situation where everybody brings each other down. So if there's no incentive for you to work harder than the fucking guy next to you, what you end up doing is you work as hard as the weakest link in that chain. And what that happens then is, let's say beforehand, you needed to get everybody to survive, you needed a guy producing 10 times the average person. No, no, no. You needed a guy producing 10 times the average person to make up for that guy at the back end producing zero point 0.5 the average person. Kind of like our match in Halo last night where I had 17 kills and you had 17 deaths. You need that balancing equation. But then if you tell me like, oh yeah, there's no benefit for you getting that 17 kills, you're going to get the exact same treatment as the guy that gets the 17 deaths. It's like, okay, well then why the fuck would I do anything? So what you then end up is you don't have the equation balanced anymore. You have it where a lot of people will fucking die before you get it stabilized to the point where the production equals the the needs of everybody else. Also, I don't think people like realize your freedom of choice goes out the window with these things. People are like, "Oh yeah, we're going to live in this fucking socialist utopia where like I'm going to be able to do whatever I want." What do you mean, comrade? You're not going to be able to do whatever you want. You're going to do exactly what we need you to fucking do. And it's no longer of like, yeah, I'm this brilliant math guy, but I want to fucking do sports stuff and be in sports media. They're going to be like, no, no, no. Your aptitude shows you're in math. You're in math now. Yeah, but I don't want to do math. Don't care. That's what your aptitude is. That's what you're doing. It's like fucking like all this like these artsy fartsy classes and whatnot. Like, you know what you don't see coming out of China? These great works of art. You know why? Because they fucking don't do it. There's no like, yeah, I'm gonna be a fucking artist. Like think about the fucking the media coming out of China right now too. The only thing that they've like maybe like caught on board with is like we've now started to see like a little bit of like Japanese style like anime and manga coming out of China, but they consume American media. Like we started doing our Hollywood movies over there, which we then started self-censoring Hollywood movies. Like I don't think people like realize shit like that we do, like how when Star Wars was over there, they fucking they removed John Boyega from the fucking posters because the Chinese don't like black people. Yeah, 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 yeah. So they completely removed the black people, and then like to advertise Black Panther over there, they fucking the poster here was what the fuck? What was the actor that Chadwick Boseman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The poster over here was Chadwick Boseman without the Black Panther mask on. The poster over there in fucking China was with him with the mask on, which I don't know how the fuck they got any of that advertisement going over there. Like the whole fucking movie's about a civilization in Africa, so like I don't know like how they got that one, but like they did. All the marketing was like him with the mask to kind of like make it seem that it wasn't a black guy like playing that character, which is fucking wild.
And what happens when people actually saw it?
It did okay, but they have so many people there, and again, they are not making these things themselves. So like that's kind of like a great indicator of the freedom index of a country. Is there any kind of like art stuff like that coming out of the country? And if the answer is no, it's because the people are being suppressed in that country. Like that's why I'm not worried about India, because if India starts manufacturing our stuff, they're going to go along the same kind of trend that us and Europe have gone on, because they have Bollywood. They have culture coming out of that country right now. They make art. They're not to like the whole like level of luxury that we are yet, that they can be like hyper focused on that. But I mean, like even when you look at like how we're doing like a podcast now, or there's YouTube videos, how many like Chinese podcasts do you know of that like break the like the mold like internationally? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And I know you're like, oh, well, how many European ones do I know? That's not as comparable, because the EU as a whole is a big player on the world stage, but the individual like member states like really aren't. But China is such a big player on the world stage that part of the way that you get your dominance culturally around the world is through like arts and media forms like that. There's nothing like that. There's no great like Chinese fucking like podcasters that people are like over. They used to have it to a degree with Hong Kong until Britain turned Hong Kong over to China, and then they went in and they fucking they suppressed that entire fucking region. I don't know. Did you see like the fucking protests over in Hong Kong when they got like turned over and like the shit where like they were all like wearing masks and like throwing like bricks at like the CCP when they came in? Well, there was like a great thing when they got turned over where they tried to fight back because they were trying to keep that like freedom thing. They were even over there waving U.S. flags to try to like drum up that symbolism of we want freedom and independence and we want to be like how we were when we were under European control and English control. And they basically squashed that whole thing. There was a little bit of resistance, but China came in there and just started making fucking people disappear. Even though part of the agreement with England was like, hey, these civil liberties are supposed to stay in place even when we hand it back to you. They're like, oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
shit.
sure. And now it's got to the point where all of that stuff has gone away. Hong Kong's been supremely suppressed. We were taking Hong Kong refugees in here for a while. We were giving them asylum status because they were persecuting them so badly over there in Hong Kong. And now all of that's been quashed. Like, it's fucking crazy, man.
Hmm.
Like and this is stuff that people don't pay attention to because again they get to flash in all propaganda of look how great China is, look how amazing it is. And yes, we get propagandized here as well to be like, yeah, they're terrible because they're kind of like our big bad to a degree, although again we're still heavily focused on Russia, which I don't fucking understand. Russia's a nothing burger. But we're so like propagandized from us on that end where they're like, oh well, I don't believe the government. We're kind of in that age where nobody trusts anything like anymore. We've almost come full circle to like the boomer era where like boomers could get away with making up whatever the fuck they want because you couldn't verify any of it. We've now been so muddied with AI, fake news, distrust, disinformation that nobody believes anything anymore. You can fucking say whatever you want again. I think we're back in that age of like, yeah, I could be like, yeah, I'm an astronaut. Prove it otherwise. I'll make a website fucking tomorrow that says like, yeah, look at me on the I'm an astronaut, and make a fucking wiki page with a whole background of like where I was born, how I got into the fucking program, and nobody would be able to tell the difference. And because I'm not big enough, nobody would ever correct that fucking wiki page.
I just saw something the other day with Adobe now has it's a tool for like, is this AI?
Yeah, and with that, like the fucking, I really, I don't think it's a coincidence that right after this whole Chinese trade war thing, suddenly all of our social media stuff has been flooded with this garbage AI content, especially after that whole what is it, DeepSeek? That's the Chinese AI. Do you know anything about DeepSeek?
Heard the name.
Yeah, so DeepSeek is basically like a Chat GBT and fucking all these other things kind of knockoff, where they basically took the AI language model that was already there and ran it in a more streamlined kind of way. But there's also like people that like know that they either say the stuff is like completely copied from other people's codes, or they suspect that what it's doing is it's just querying another language model AI to figure these things out. Which whatever. If you're gonna make a search engine, make a search engine that pings Google and just gives you the results, right? That's kind of what they all do anyway. Um, but it's really it's very coincidental to me that we get the DeepSeek AI coming out after all right before all this shit, and now after the trade war we're being flooded with this garbage AI content, and I think it's just to confuse and obfuscate people so they don't know what's true. Because like what is it, if you don't believe in anything you'll fall for everything. So like if you don't know it's true or not, like people like have these deep fake videos and think, "Oh yeah, this is definitely true." The biggest one that is around now is like you ever get to see the videos where Like it's got the Joe Rogan thing, and it's like, yeah, look that up for me, Jamie. And then it cuts to like a fucking video that's
Mhm.
never been on the Joe Rogan
Yeah.
podcast at all. And people think like that he's been discussing about that because there actually is a Joe Rogan AI where you can completely generate like voice everything with fucking Joe
Mhm.
Rogan, and you would never know the difference. And this shit is just spam nonsense everywhere. They're taking trusted sources and faking the content coming out from them. And if you don't know about these things, you have zero fucking idea. So everybody just talks nonsense past each other. And then it doesn't help that on top of that, our media is so fucking partisan that like they obfuscate our own titles thanks to fucking Obama removing the shit that stopped us from propagandizing our own people. Love that one. After World War II and the whole fucking pro-war like cartoons that we put before movies, was like, yeah, sign up and definitely go over there and fight. We put a law into place that was like, you're not allowed to do that here anymore. Fucking like you could talk about the shit whatever, but you can't propagandize the U.S. people to be pro government interests. Not allowed. And then Obama came in and removed that. And then suddenly, after that got removed, we saw a huge shift in the media where they all went along these fucking party lines. They all say the same shit all the time, and like nobody deviates from that narrative. And but people don't know that. People don't realize these things, these guardrails were removed in that way. But yeah, I don't know. Again, long rant here. I know you haven't been saying much, but
Yeah, I barely got a word in this time.
well, you could have said something, but I don't think you know much. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, this is yeah, a subject that I have no input for. So
it's just been on my mind a lot, especially because the real shame of it is when the there was an interview, I think where the fuck I was watching it, but a reporter was asking questions. I think it was a UK reporter was asking questions of like one of the Chinese guys, like whether they're gonna do about the tariffs and like if they're gonna like back down or whatever. And they basically said like, yeah, China's been around long before the U.S. and will be around long after the U.S. and we don't fucking care. But it's so funny because like China to the Chinese started when the Communist Chinese Party began. So like China as it exists now is about like a 70-year-old country.
hmm.
So like the when the Chinese Communist Party came into power, I think that was 75-ish years ago, whatever. I know that Trump is. I just know this fact because it's a fun factoid. You know how we fucking measure shit in Statue of Liberties. I know that fucking Trump is older than China as a country as it exists today.
Hmm.
So like if like yeah the U.S. exists here, but if somebody came in and overthrew our government and started a new U.S. government, like we wouldn't be like, oh yeah, it's been the U.S. that it has been for 300 years. It's kind of like the fucking, well, 250 years, but it'd be like this is a new start of the U.S. Same thing in China. They always go back to like, yeah, China's been around for X amount of time. Well, one, the landmass that is China today is not the China that it was in the past, because you had Mongolia going in there, you had all these other countries. So China and different like city states, like like the what was it, like the East Kingdom and shit like that. So like China was broken up, much like how like a lot of the European countries were back in the day. They weren't like Italy back in the day wasn't Italy. It was Rome and then these other like little city states all around, and then eventually they banded together. Same thing with China. So whenever it suits them, they're like, "Oh, we're a long history. We've been there forever." But really, they're a very relatively young country, and they don't know what's going to happen yet. And I just think it's a shame because when you go back and you look at the history of China, they had so much art and culture and things that came from that region that have now just been quashed. And I know this is going to be difficult, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's just going to end in regime change. But I would love to see where we get a free China again, and they get back to that whole kind of they get back to that whole kind of culture and
Mhm.
growth and being a unique symbol over there in that region of the world, because they were such a cultural aspect of those Asian countries that's kind of just disappeared. You see it with Taiwan because I don't know if you know this, until like I think who the fuck was it? Was it Nixon who finally recognized them? Maybe it was
Hmm?
not, maybe it was Roosevelt who did it, but uh when China became a country, for the longest time we recognized Taiwan as China and not as Taiwan because the leadership of China fled to Taiwan. That's why they always want to take Taiwan back, because that's the so there's still like the king in Taiwan and whatnot, which is the old like emperor of China that like escaped there. But Taiwan is a perfect example of, because they're not under that authoritative regime. Yeah, they have the royalty, but like the country's not run by the royalty, and they have art, they have culture, they have innovation, they have science. They're flourishing. I'd love to see that come back to China. Because if we got it to where China, instead of becoming this fucking communist shithole, was actually like back to freedom and culture and art again, I think that's where we would see a very, very peaceful, like global stage where we would start building up some of these countries that have been behind industrially and economically. But right now we have such a sinkhole of like this negative idea of like we have to be like authoritative around the world, that it's just destroying the balance. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens. Who the fuck knows? But I again, unless a deal is made soon, I think it's gonna implode. It's gonna be crazy.
Wait and see.
I know. You're not enthused. I've been ranting, and the thing that sucks is fucking like right now we're small, but like if we ever blow up, people are gonna come back to this shit and just be like, what the
This guy
fuck?
just talked by himself for an hour.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, it is what it is. But again, some of the things I might have got wrong this whole time. If I'm off on things, if you have other like views on it, whatever, please drop comments. Let me know, because I'd like to know more. But with all of these things, like I always try to watch multiple sources, the good and the bad, because then you kind of get like the actual picture of things. Because people are going to lie on both sides of that. Because as much as there's people that want to promote China, there's people that want to take down China as well. And from what I've seen, what I've watched and I've gathered, it seems to be a very bad situation. But I could be wrong. Who the fuck knows? Only the people in China actually know. Just like they talk
Well,
about
probably not a lot of them even.
well, maybe, but just like fucking being in other places and other countries, and the way they talk about America, they get us completely wrong because they don't understand the inner workings. I'm sure we don't fully understand the inner workings of China. I don't think it's that great, but it's probably not as bad as we're led to believe either. Because again, things get lost in translation. So like, unless you actually speak the language, you don't fully know.
Or have spent any significant time traveled and looked.
Yeah. But I did find something funny that's a fun factoid that I'll leave it on. So I found out that because things don't like translate directly, I found out that Transformers in China more or less translates to shape shifting King Kong.
Okay.
I don't know why you think it would be like shape changing car or like shape changing like mech, like something like that. No, like shape changing King Kong.
Fun.
Yeah, I guess to like reference the giant robot size of like King Kong is like generally like recognized as like giant ape, so they just go shape shifting King Kong. That's Transformer. Yeah.
Hey, this is a little tangent, but I saw this earlier, and I figured I'd talk to you or mention it. So, saw an article, the headline: Mark Hoppus from Blink-182, he's the bassist,
Yeah.
may have been responsible for the capture of Saddam Hussein.
What?
It's a
Fucking
story.
how?
So it had to do with the fact that Saddam was sending video messages to his followers from an unknown location, and where was it? But somehow Mark had a conversation with an admiral or something like that, and he was like, "Hey, like he's recording this shit. Why don't you have like drones fly around all in the area, emitting like a sound that they can't hear, but you'd be able to pick up on the videos, and see if you can catch them that way." And then it was and then 4 months later, it happened. is when they caught him. So like there's no proof that like he actually had anything to do with it. But there's at least a chance that Mark Hoppus had something to do with them catching Saddam.
That's fucking crazy. That's that fucking weaponized autism right there, dude. Quick, broadcast signals everywhere from our drones, and there are different frequencies, and when we hear that frequency, we know exactly where it was in that area.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. I still remember the fucking hole that they found him in. Remember that diagram of the fucking hole that they found him like hiding in, with like he was like crouched in that fucking area, and the fucking like the little vent bringing him like it's like damn how the mighty have fallen there. It's some shit we'll talk about another day. The fucking Iraq wars and the craziness over there. That whole fucking shenanigans. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah,
though.
yeah. I know that was a tangent. And we're about to wrap it up, but
yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, we'll cover it next time.
All right. Yeah. I know. Again, today was a long ramble from me, but I'm just like watching all this shit. I'm like, I didn't want to be all like fucking like nonsense rambling doom and gloom again. I think I want to talk about another day with the whole China thing and whatnot. I do want to like have an AI discussion one day. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Allen Iverson?
No. Different AI, actual AI.
The movie with the movie with Haley Joel Osment.
I mean, that was a good movie. Did you watch that movie?
Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah, that movie was fucking sad as fuck. Yeah. Towards the end, so sad, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That shit was crazy. The aliens coming back, but anyway, that's it for today. Again, if you guys like what you heard, you made it all the way here to the end, smash that like button, give us a follow, leave a comment, and you can find us on Rumble, Spotify, and YouTube.
All right, thanks, folks.
See ya.